Well, good evening. Like we've said before, we're giving our reports of the work we did when we were in Fiji. And I think Lisa was just as excited about doing this as I was, because there's so much to talk about. And the thing about Fiji is sometimes we think, I was looking at some of the pictures and I thought, is that really one of ours? Is that one we took off the internet? But all these are ones that we have taken. This one on the screen also is one that we actually took, and looking up the palm trees. And Fiji is no doubt a very beautiful place, as you're going to see as we go throughout this report. First question we want to think about is, where is Fiji? And when I first was talking to Stacy about going to Fiji, that's one of the things I had to think about was I wasn't even sure exactly where it was in the Pacific. I knew it was in the Pacific, I didn't know where exactly, but it is east of Australia and north there in New Zealand. The Marshall Islands, where I was at last year, is up just a little bit and to the left, though it makes it look a lot closer than what it actually is. When I flew to the Marshall Islands, I flew from San Francisco to LA, and I took a little, flew from San Francisco to Hawaii, and then I took about a 5-hour flight to Marshall Islands. It wasn't really that long. But when we flew to Fiji, we flew into Los Angeles, and we took a 10.5-hour flight to Fiji. And I missed that little 5-hour one because that was a lot easier to deal with. And this is what the islands look like. All these islands make up the Fiji Islands. There may be others on there that there's not enough space to put them all on there. But you can see the main island there is Viti Levu, if I say that correctly. And you can see Suva there in red. That's the capital. That's where we actually were working at. And getting to Fiji, we flew from Tulsa to Denver, and then Denver to LA, and then all the way out to Fiji. As I mentioned, it was a long flight. Flying with islanders is always interesting, or flying on a plane going to another country. And the short experience I've had in it's always been interesting, because you never know who you're going to be sitting next to, what they're like, and if they even speak English, and hopefully they to be honest, hopefully they don't smell too bad sitting next to you, because coming from other parts of the world, as we found out when we were landing there in Los Angeles, another group were landing from, I forget the place, and they were coming from a very poor country, and so they had a lot less, and so it's just, sometimes it's very interesting, some things that you see and experiences that you have when you're traveling. But we're going to look at some facts about Fiji. This is the Fijian flag as it is right now. They're actually voting to change the flag. They're trying to get away from the Great Britain influence. For a while they were celebrating the Queen's birthday, and they decided that we're not going to do that anymore. And they replaced it with a sports day. I thought that was kind of interesting that you replace the Queen's birthday with a sports day. But that's what they did. But this is what their flag looks like right now, but they'll be changing that. And actually when we were over there, we saw some different flags which they were to vote on and decide what their new flag was going to look like. Fiji is made up of 332 islands, and only 110 of them are inhabited. And there are a lot of resorts on other islands of Fiji. Of course, we're on the main island, but there's smaller islands where a lot of the resorts were at. People could take small airplanes into, or even helicopter rides into those smaller islands if you were on one of the resort islands, as they call it. The largest islands are Viti Levu and Vanua Levu. Again, I don't know how to say these exactly right, but these are the largest islands that make up Fiji. The population of Fiji is 860,000. The capital is Suva, which is where we are at. And the population of Suva is about 88,000 in the city and about 175,000 urban. So it's a big area with a lot of people there. And you get a very wide spectrum of people, from the poor to those who are living in the city who maybe aren't quite so poor, but you still have, I think overall, you look at where we are at, you didn't run into really a lot of wealthy people. They were still struggling and still working very hard to maintain the livelihood that they had. And again, there's Suva, that's where we are at. And so Suva, that area, as I said before, is about 175,000 urban, that whole area combined there. Languages in Fiji include English, of course, Fijian, and Fiji Hindi. We heard Fijian. I don't know if we heard the other one, Fiji Hindi, but most people spoke English, and most of them understood English, even if they didn't speak it. But you could always find someone that seemed like who spoke English or understood it well enough to know what you were saying or what you were asking. And so the speaking over there wasn't difficult. There were very few times where we actually had a translator that was being used. And some Bible studies, they can understand English, and still the person who's there with me might still go ahead and translate it into Fijian. But they could always understand English, or most of the time. The time zone is Fiji time zone, about 17 hours ahead. So it's evening here. It's early. It's going to be probably mid-afternoon Monday for them. I looked at it earlier today, but it's probably about mid-afternoon for them on Monday right now. And so there's a big time change. Of course, when you fly to Fiji, you cross what we call the date line, which is really confusing because you leave. We left on Monday and we arrived on Wednesday, and we kind of just go right through Tuesday. And then on the way back, we left on Friday and we got back on Saturday, which means you just keep flying. We left, for instance, we left Fiji on Friday at 11 o'clock in the evening, and we got to Los Angeles at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, the same day. And so it makes for a very long flight, and a lot of flying really wears on you. And so there's a lot of flying, and again, not any hotel stays during that time at all. And they drive on the left side of the road in Fiji, and in other countries, driving is always interesting. In Madro, they never asked me to drive. I didn't volunteer to drive. In Fiji, there was no way I would have drove. We rode in a cab a few times. I rode in one once by myself, and I forgot where I was coming from, going back to the hotel we were at. And they slow down, but I don't remember people stopping fully a lot of times. They use a lot of horns. It kind of sounds like New York, because there's just horns going constantly. And you cross in the street, you better get across quickly. They don't stop. They just keep right on going. They just hit the horn and keep going. And so when we actually got back to Tulsa, Lisa made a comment as we were crossing the street to get to the car that she said, "I forgot they stop here," because they don't do that in Fiji. But they drive on the left side of the road, which is interesting. And this is their currency is what they call the Fijian dollar. And you notice it's very colorful. And I've told them that several times. I liked the way their money looked, because it wasn't, we take out our dollar bills, they all look the same except for the numbers, the green and the white. But you see there, they have the top, on the very top there is a $5 Fijian dollar, which is in green, it looks like a bird there on it. And then you have the purple, which is their $10 bill, the blue, which is the 20, and then the peach color, which is their 50, and the yellow one, which is their 100. And the Fijian, the way it's converted over, when you went to convert your money or transfer your money into Fijian, it was about every 49 cents you could get a Fijian dollar. It's about 2 for 1. So, and so it made it very easy in converting funds. But you think about when you got over there, we were looking, for instance, you go to a fast food restaurant, you're used to seeing $5 or $6 meals. Over there, they were 11 and 12. But you forget that their Fijian dollar is only worth about 50 cents of every American dollar. So it wasn't quite as expensive as what you might think, but it's still, looking at $12 for a burger, which is not a burger over there, you think that's crazy. But that's not quite as bad as it sounds, and it really was pretty reasonable as far as all that goes. And little Brenson's going to help me out here. When in Fiji, we were picking up, looking for different things, and you get all kinds of coins. In Fiji, they don't have $1 bills. They have $1 coins. They don't have $2 bills. They have $2 coins. And so Brenson is going to help us here, and he has some 50-cent pieces that each family can take one 50-cent piece, and that'll be your souvenir from us for you from Fiji. And so as he makes his way around, I'm just going to keep going, but he's going to make his way around, and you can just take one out of his little bag. And it's just something for us to, one per family, yes. Something for us to give to you to help you remember the work that you helped us accomplish while we were there in Fiji. One of the questions we have to remember and answer always is, why do we go? We joked around a little bit, and we had some people joking around with me about going for a vacation. But if you've ever been on a mission trip, a proper mission trip is anything but vacation. Of course, you think about missionaries, there's always some who you might run into who might take a little more free time than what they ought to. But with working with Brother Stacy and his wife, and having worked with Stacy before, I was thankful that was not the case working with him and with others I've worked with. We go there to work and to do all we can while we're there. And this picture is taken from the airplane looking over Fiji. This is taken as we're flying from Nandi, from the west side of the island, to Nassori, which is on the southeast part of the island, because we would land in Nassori, and then we would, what? Oh, okay, well that's, okay, so she took him away from Nassori back to Nandi. Either way, going across the country. And when we were flying in, we would land in Nandi and then fly over to Nassori, and then they picked us up in Nassori and we drove over to Suva. But we have there on the screen, Matthew 28 and verse 19 says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." And being on the island, like we were in Madro, we weren't the only ones there. The Methodists have a very, very strong influence there in Fiji, as do the Mormons. The Latter-day Saints are very strong there. They're beginning to build a college there. And so they have a very large amount of denominations, but the Methodists and the Latter-day Saints are definitely the two largest ones there. We think about who went. Of course, we want to think about Stacy and Kathy Ferguson, who's who we were working with. Stacy and Kathy Ferguson worked with the Pacific Islands Bible College, which is overseen by the elders at Forest Park in Forest Park, Georgia. Stacy is actually the assistant director there for the Pacific Islands Bible College, and his wife recently took early retirement so she could work with him. They've been out on the islands now for this summer. This is actually their second trip out. They meant to go out once and stay out until the beginning of August, but they went out to Vanuatu, and it was raining, and his wife fell, and she broke the bone just above her wrist, and so they had to come back in for a while and let that heal and get all that set, then go back out. But they're actually now still out in the islands and will be until early August. And I'll talk more about what Stacy is wearing in just a second. There's a better picture of that. But the Islanders wear a lot of interesting clothing, to say the least. What I'm wearing, what Lisa's wearing, what Chloe is wearing is not anything you wouldn't see over there. There's a lot of children, and that's, they dress that way. And it's very interesting. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And of course, Lisa and I and Chloe Joe all went. I wish Chloe was smiling a little bit better in that picture, but that's Chloe. But of course, we were there, and this is actually taken right in front of the church building there in Suva. Where did we worship? Well, we worshiped with the Rwanda Church of Christ in Suva. This is right in front of the church building. And on the sign to the left is their church sign, and below the Bible, you can't see on this picture, it says, "We speak when the Bible speaks and remain silent when the Bible is silent." And so they had a lot on their sign. If you wanted to read it, you couldn't really read it while you were driving by. You'd have to stop, get out, and look at it, because there's a lot of stuff on there. But it says non-denominational on there. It says Romans 16:16. It has all their service times. And so they just crammed everything they could on there. But it's all scriptural things and things you want to know, but you can't see it driving around, especially riding with a taxi driver. There's no way you're going to see that. This is inside their church building. They have fans and windows that open up, but there is no air conditioning in their actual church building. So it wasn't uncommon for men to not to wear suits. Some did wear suits, some did not. But as you see here, this is taken from the back. And you notice their pews, there's no padding, there's not much of a back. And their pew, unlike ours, is kind of tilted back in the back. It is straight up and down. And unless you're really tired, you're not going to fall asleep. which made it very helpful during Bible classes and sermons. I knew they were awake because you couldn't sleep in that thing. But it's not really comfortable, but it served its purpose. You can see the psalm books there. If you look up towards the front, you can see, it's kind of hard to see on the screen. I wonder if this will work. Oh, it didn't. Okay. Well, the two boxes there in the front on the left side are the boxes they would use when they were taking up their contribution. We have the plates. That's what they would use when they were taking up their contribution. So a little bit different, but served its purpose. Behind the pulpit, you have the classrooms and the kitchen, and the curtain to the left is actually, it will take you upstairs where we would have our one-day Bible class, which I'll talk more about later. And so they had a pretty nice building, good size. You can see the second floor there in that window on the top. And so they had a pretty nice building for being in Fiji and being able to hold a lot of people. That Sunday morning when we were there, when I was preaching, they had 70 at least, maybe over 70 who were in that building. And so that place was packed. And when they sing, they don't sing quietly. They sing loud. And Chloe Jo kind of started crying. It scared her. But they sing out. And some in Fijian, some in English. There's a couple songs they sing in Fijian. And later on, if you want to listen to it, I'll let you play it and let you listen to it. I didn't put it on here. But it is totally different sometimes. I mean, there is no half-heartedness. They sing out loud. And so it kind of startled her. What did we do? Well, we taught the Pacific Islands Bible College courses, or I did anyway, during the weeknight. That's what PIBC stands for, Pacific Islands Bible College. The way the Pacific Islands Bible College works is that instead of having what we call a brick and mortar building where people come to there, they have set up where they send out DVDs and things and then send out workers to teach classes in different areas, because it's easier to send people to where they are than to try to get them to come to where you are, because in reality, there's no way they could do it. They can't afford to. They couldn't afford to travel into one or two places throughout the islands for Bible courses. And so instead, we go out to where they are, and then we're able to teach them and teach a lot more of them at one time. But I taught the course on the 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. If you're familiar with 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, you know it talks about the man of perdition, talks about withdrawing fellowship, the second coming. There's a lot of stuff in there, and I taught it in a week and a half. So it was very much of a rushed teaching, but they got a good sound teaching and good grasp of it while we were there. And there was about 30 or so there each night for the classes, Monday through Friday. It went from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., 2 hours. But they were there, and some brought their kids, and they went to the children's classes during that same time as well. This is some of them taking the test. That Thursday night, we left Friday morning, so this has been Thursday night. They were taking the test for 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, taking it for my class, and this is just showing them taking the test. And we gave them an hour, and everyone got it done within the hour. And they all did very, 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 very well on it. We also taught children's Bible classes, or Lisa and Kathy taught children's Bible classes, especially during the weeknight. This is Lisa and Chloe, and you got Kathy there in the back with some of the kids as well. And they taught classes during the week, and also they taught classes during the day as well. They had some ladies' classes and other things as well during the day. And this is just some more of the kids. And the girl to the far left is Skylar. And she is the granddaughter of Peter, who I'll point out later. And so she was riding with us most nights. Peter would come and pick us up and take us to the church building each night. Well, he picked us up most nights in what we call a Jeep. And so she would get in the back. Now, we would call the back either the back or the trunk, but they called it the boot. And so every time we get there, we'd ask, where does Chloe need to ride or Scott need to ride? And get in the boot. And so they ride in the boot. And singing and talking back and forth the whole time. And she was pretty cute, pretty funny. We also had one-day workshops, or a one-day workshop. Lisa had and Kathy taught for a ladies' class that Friday morning, the first Friday that we were there. And she knew, and so did Kathy, knew that they were going to have a ladies' class. The men's class, I found out when I got there that we were going to have a men's class. Stacy told me that the men had 12 questions they wanted us to look at, and so he divided it up and he gave me 6, and he took 6. And in the 3 or so hours we had, we covered 4 of the questions. They ranged from things like marriage and divorce, and worship, and keeping the church strong, different things such as that. And so we started about 10 o'clock that morning, and we finished a little after 2 that afternoon. And this is me teaching that Friday morning upstairs, and I think on that occasion I was talking about changes in worship. And this is Lisa teaching downstairs. At one point, I was teaching upstairs and she was teaching downstairs, and it's kind of neat to know that your wife also was teaching Bible class downstairs. So when I stopped to let people ask questions, I could hear her downstairs, and it was kind of neat for me to hear that and to have her down there. And this is Stacy also teaching his 2 questions that he got to get to because we just ran out of time. We let them ask questions, and boy, they asked tons of questions. And I think once, that took me about 45 minutes to 50 minutes to cover the stuff and then to answer the questions. And when they didn't have questions, for instance, when Stacy taught his class, or maybe 1 or 2 questions asked, it took about 30. And when we got to marriage and divorce, you can imagine we had a ton of questions, and that took the rest of the time. And this is Kathy downstairs teaching during the ladies' class as well. This is the men of the congregation that attended the one-day class. In front of Stacy in the kind of the gray shirt, that is John. To the left in the blue shirt, that's Peter. That's the person who picked us up during the weeknight. I mentioned his little granddaughter earlier being in the boot. That's him. He picked us up. William is to his left. In the back next to me is Billy. He's the one who took me to our Bible studies during the day. As I'll talk about in a moment, we had a lot of Bible studies during the day. In front of him is Bob, the older gentleman with the glasses. Back behind Bob in the striped shirt, that is Tui. And the gentleman in the green, I cannot remember his name. What? Amosi. Okay, at least he remembers his name. The brother in the blue shirt, I don't know because I only saw him about once or twice throughout the whole thing. But you'll notice that Amosi is wearing what they call a Sulu. And the first time I thought that, man, that guy's wearing a skirt. And as I got closer to him, he's kind of a big guy. I wasn't about to say that to him. And I was talking to to Stacy later, who also was wearing a Sulu in that shirt or in that picture. And then also William was wearing one as well. When they wear those on Sunday morning with a shirt and tie, they say that's an equivalent to wearing a suit. That's how nice and how supposed to be a way of showing respect and dressing nice for them. But again, the first time I saw that, I thought, what are these guys wearing? I've never seen that. They didn't see it in Madro. And Stacy and Lisa tried to get me to buy one, but I told them that's not going to happen. And so that did not happen. But anyway, that's the men who came for the one-day Bible study. And again, that was 3 or 4 hours long. And they had, as we'll talk about in a moment, they had a fruit break in between to break up the classes and things. But it's interesting that, Friday is the day that we work. And it's interesting, these men, if they were working, they took time off to come. They made special arrangements to be there during the day, they'd be there in the evening. They were always there. This is kind of what I call the core group of the men, because they were always there. And what also was funny, as I mentioned before we left, it was in the 70s, low 80s, maybe when we were there. It was their winter season. In the evening, guys would be wearing jackets. And they came up to me, "You're not cold?" "No, man, this feels nice." And they got the sniffles, and I thought, you got to be kidding me. And but that's what happened. In fact, Billy, who's in the back there sitting next to me, he had throat problems the whole time, and he asked me about our winters. I said, "Well, we actually get snow in Oklahoma." And he thought that was just a crazy thing. But they were wearing jackets, and ladies were wearing jackets, and it was their cold season. And this is the ladies that came to their one-day Ladies' Day class. You notice they have a large group of ladies there. Again, this is probably, I'd say, probably their core group of ladies. They had a lot of ladies who came. If some of their husbands weren't faithful, they still came. And so they had a large group of people that came. They were a great group of ladies, a great congregation there. We also passed out Bible tracts while there in Fiji. Think for a moment, if you ever passed out tracts here in the U.S., what can you think about? How hard it is to get people to take it. And if they do, we know that sometimes, you ever hand something to somebody you know that they're going to go home and throw that right in the trash and never open it up? Well, in Fiji, we were walking through the fish market. We were trying to originally go to the bus station because he said there'd be a lot of people there going to all different places. We never even got there because we started passing out tracts. And when you pass out something, people will start looking, they want the same thing. And so we just started passing them out. And as Lisa pointed out, we were walking and she'd look back and see, and they'd have them opened up reading them. And so that's a very encouraging thing for us to think about, how eager they were to listen and to give you even just a few moments to read something or to talk with them. And so we passed out Bible tracts, and there's Lisa with Chloe. Now this is in the fish market. And so in the fish market, we know that fish in the U.S., they're packaged, they're cold. You walk through the fish market, you don't smell anything in Walmart fish section, do you? It's not that way in Fiji. You walk through there and oh, and we kind of teased Stacy about it. He stopped and he said, "No, are you going to be okay if we walk through here?" And I said, "Yeah, we'll be fine." Well, Chloe sees some of the fish and she says, "Those belong in the sea." And so she didn't like that, but she made it through. In about the last 10 minutes or so, Lisa took her out and got her out of the fish market so she wouldn't have to see those things. But we have some more pictures about that in a moment. And we also set up Bible correspondence courses. The Pacific Islands Bible College has, it's really about the size of a postcard, and they fill out their name, and they can put a stamp on it, they can give it back to us, and we take it with us, and we sign them up for Bible correspondence courses. And this is me here. Actually, there's about 3 or 4 ladies there in front of me. You can't see all of them. And they all 3 or 4 signed up for a Bible correspondence course. And all I did was walk up, and they understood English. And I said, "Bula," which means hello. And I said, "Would you like to sign up for a Bible correspondence course? It's free. Just write down your information. As long as you have a P.O. box, we can send it to you. If you don't have a stamp, just fill it out, and we'll take it with us, and we'll sign you up." There you go. And they just take them. We were looking for pens because that time people were signing up for it. And so they were definitely very eager to learn more about the Bible. And in that picture, the reason I had my hand up because the wind was whipping through that place, and so that tarp would just boof, boof. And when you're 6'2", it smacks you on the head when you're walking through there. So I was trying to hold it up so I could talk with them and keep that thing off my head. But this part, you see, that's not the fish market, obviously. This is actually, you come out of the fish market and take a right, and this is what you would see, some different vegetables and fruits and things. We have another picture of another market here in just a moment. And this is Kathy doing the same things. You notice there's 4 people there. There's a head at the bottom of the screen. There's 4 people signing up for Bible correspondence courses. If you've ever been out with us when we pass out things and knock on doors for VBS, that kind of stuff doesn't happen very often. And so it's very encouraging to see that not everybody in the world is like that. There's some who still want to hear the truth. And they still want to know what the Bible says. And so they all signed up for it. In fact, there was one place a lady was signing up for it, and Lisa came over and told me, she said, "This lady over here has been watching you. You need to go there and talk to her when you get done." So I went over there, and she signed up too. We gave out, I don't know how many we had, over half of what we had in our little stack we gave out and had them fill those things out and brought them back with us. We also, where I, of course, taught Bible classes. I taught a Bible class on Sunday morning and preached. This is Sunday morning there in Suva. And again, that place, this is actually during a sermon. I taught the Bible class. I talked about the authority of the Bible. You remember the lesson of the Bible speak I did earlier in this year, I think. That's the Bible class I did. In the sermon, I talked about daily Christian living. And that place was packed, full of people. Up front, you can see the little white dry erase board. They put down a mat, and a lot of the kids would come and sit there because there wasn't enough room for them in the pews. And so that place was overflowing. We had personal Bible studies, and this is what really sets some of the other countries apart from the United States. And of course, we know we can get Bible studies here. It's not as easy and that's putting it lightly. But we can get Bible studies here. We can sign up people for Bible correspondence courses. But Fiji and the islands and other places in the world, it's a totally different thing. You think, well, we're going to go out and ask people to sign up for stuff, and it's going to be just like it is here in the States. It's not like that at all. In fact, this is me studying with Papau. Papau, I don't remember how you say his name now. It's been too long, I forget. Stacy had been studying with him, but Stacy had lost his voice. I don't know if it's because it was cold. I don't know. He talked too much. I don't know. He lost his voice. And so I was studying with him that Friday morning. And we actually had 2 studies. Billy had at one point, we had 2 studies in the morning. We had one in the afternoon. And when I was leaving, they were trying to figure out how to set up more studies in the afternoon because they were running out of people to do the studies. And when we were out passing out Bible tracts one day, him and I, we had a person, we went to their house to study with them. They couldn't do it. They had to go to the doctor or something. And they said, come back on Wednesday. You know, when someone does that here, what do we think? Yeah, right. Well, we came back on Wednesday. He was waiting. Well, we couldn't have that study with him that day, so we went out and we passed out Bible tracts. And as we were passing out Bible tracts, one young lady said, would you come and talk to my sister? She's been getting involved into parties and clubs and things. We come and talk to her. So we came back the next day and we talked. We came back and the time wasn't just the 2 young ladies there. We came back and we talked with her and we talked with their mother. We came back the next day, we talked with the mother and the father. And when we were leaving on Friday morning, we had a Bible study. And we were already talking about baptism. I told Billy, I don't want to go back yet because we could have another baptism before we ever leave. But they were so eager to hear the Bible and to have Bible tracts and things offered to them for free, because some places, believe it or not, denominations sometimes overseas, when they pass out things, it's not for free. And so when you say it's free, boy, they're gone. So we had several Bible studies throughout the day. Every day, every weekday we had Bible studies. Saturday we were there. We had a Bible study that afternoon. And we studied with one brother. Billy and I studied with a brother who, we went and visited him. He had lost his wife just a year ago. When we got there, we found out his son had been killed by the police the week before. I thought, boy, this is going to be difficult. And we talked with him, and I pulled out some scriptures about coming back to services and worshiping God and finding encouragement from the God in the Bible. He was back that night to Bible class. Every night for the rest of that week, and from what I've been told, he's coming back. He was there on Sunday as well for the worship services. When they hear the truth, unlike so many today, they are willing to obey and get back right in the sight of God. And we were talking with another brother, the brother who had to put us off till Wednesday. We went back and we talked with him, and he's asking questions and questions. And what's interesting, and I didn't know this or think about this before, is how much the world watches the news coming from here. Because brother kept asking me, well, what do you think about Obama and the things going on there and homosexual marriage and the laws are passed? And I had that question asked several times in the time we were there, and I thought, why are these people asking all this stuff about what we're doing? Because they're watching what's going on over here. Well, I told him, like you can imagine, I said, well, it doesn't matter what laws are passed or what things are carried out. The Bible doesn't change concerning marriage or concerning homosexuals and marriage and things such as that. And boy, they'd love to hear that. But the world is watching us, and sometimes it's very sad to think about what they're seeing. And what I reminded him is that we don't agree with everything that goes on. Don't think for a moment that we agree with everything that goes on. And they were encouraged to hear that. Because you think about it, unless they hear from somebody from here, they don't know that. This is Kathy, and this is a study that Lisa was on as well, a personal Bible study. And they had, when we were leaving the last several days, they had 2 Bible studies every morning with 2 different ladies. And again, they had the same problem we had. They were getting more interest in Bible studies. And Stacy was talking about it to me as well as we were leaving. And this is Kathy, and you can see there Chloe there with Skylar and the ladies who they were studying with. Or the lady they were studying with was in the orange. And the other ladies are just the ones who came. to be there and to help any way they could. What we did in Fiji, well, we included baptisms. We had 2 baptisms. This first one is Tui, who I mentioned earlier, and this is Stacy who was baptizing him. The thing about Tui is he's very tall. He's taller than me, and when they got him into the baptistry, and Stacy said, I got him to scoot as far as he could, and when I leaned him back, his head still hit the back of the baptistry. He said he wasn't fully immersed, so I had to just kind of cram him down in there and get him immersed and then pull him back out. But you know, I've never seen somebody smile so much before. And we think about baptisms. This is the second one. This is the one I did Friday morning that we were leaving. We had a baptism. The morning we were leaving, we had a baptism and a Bible study before we left that afternoon. And this is Paul Powell, who I mentioned earlier. He is from an island, I forget the name of it, but there's no established congregation there. And so he is asking, what can I do when I go back? And I told him that Stacy and I, and Stacy agreed, that we would send anything we could to the congregation which is there in Suba, because he'll be there in Suba till about December, that he can watch and listen to anything he can, because we wanted him to know he could not go back to the denomination, because we cannot send somebody back to a place that's going to hear false teaching, can we? And so we encouraged him, let him know that we're going to help him any way we can, and we'll send him all the materials we can. And he was encouraged to know that, because when he said when he got back, what's he supposed to do? There's no congregation there. But we're glad that he'll at least be in Suba until about December and be able to be encouraged by those brethren while he's still there in Suba. This is at the pool, the hotel we were at, and that water was freezing. I told him we took his confession, and I started telling him how we're going to do this. And I said, well, let's just go and get down in the water. And I took a step down in the water, and we both looked at each other like, wow, this water is cold, because it's barely 80 over there. But we got down in there. I said, let's do this thing, and we did it quickly, and we got out of there. But we were thankful that we had those 2 baptisms, and as I mentioned before, the couple we were talking to that got to the topic of baptism already, I think that was definitely a good study that could also result in a baptism as well. Where did we stay in Fiji? This is a picture of the hotel, and I'll just say this: looks can be deceiving. You remember last year when I was in Madro, and I sent a picture to Chris, and Chris was kind of joking about showing the place where I was at. I pointed out to him that in the middle of the night, one night I got attacked by flying termites, and looks can be deceiving. Well, the same thing goes here in Fiji. This is where we're at. You have a full-size bed, and you have 2 twins, another couch over there. I didn't know we'd be having all those many places to sleep. But I can tell you none of them were really that comfortable. But we're grateful that we were there, be able to have that place that we had to stay at. The way that Stacy does it, I think it's a pretty good way, is that he picks a place that enables you to have the ability to prepare food in your hotel room, so you don't have to go out and eat every single time. And so we'd have breakfast there. Sometimes we'd have dinner there in the hotel. A gas stove, a propane stove in Fiji, watch out. You know, we have natural gas stove in our house, and you turn it, and it makes a little quiet click, and it lights. No. I jumped several times trying to start that thing, and I actually had to call up Stacy or Kathy, and I said, how do we start this stove? And she told me, she said, make a loud bang. I said, well, I made a loud bang, all right. And so we finally got it going, but I don't think the French toast was worth that near-death experience. But this is the kitchen. As you notice, there's 2 spigots. There's a hot and a cold. There's no warm. I guess if you want warm, you just got to splash it together. I don't know. Because you either scalded yourself or you froze your right hand off. So you had to really work it out. I don't know why they did it this way. I'm sure it's something they did long ago. It's not a brand new hotel or anything. But it came with a few dishes, and of course just enough that after every meal you had to do dishes so you'd have something to eat on next time. But that's the kitchen we had. And this is the balcony out overlooking the pool. You can see that's the pool we were baptized Papau in. And we actually had some line stringed up from, you can't see it here, there's a little white pole that goes up from the air conditioner, and we strung up line from that to the railing so we could wash our clothes in the sink with the laundry bar soap that we had, rinse them out real good, and then hang them up on that. Because being in Montreal, I had them wash something, and it came back in the odor, and I decided I'm going to do this myself from now on. So, and it's expensive. So we just did that ourselves. And so that's a whole another experience as well. But this was looking out from the balcony, and this is actually overlooking the port. We had 2 cruise ships that came in while we were there, and he always knew when the cruise ship came in, even if we weren't at the hotel, because all the merchants would start saying, "Are you from the ship?" Which means we're going to rip you off, is what they're saying. And so we no, we're not from the ship. Where do they live? Well, it's quite different. This is some apartments in front of the house of, I mentioned Jerry earlier, who his wife had died, his son was killed. This is actually in front of his house. I didn't think I'd take a picture of his house because he's outside. I didn't want him to think I was being rude by taking a picture of his house while he was sitting outside. But this is in front of it. These are some more houses and things we saw when we were driving or when we were out passing out flyers and things like that. That's more typical of what you see in Fiji. There's a couple places I went to pass out flyers the day that we had a cancellation and in our Bible study. So we went and passed out flyers, and we walk around all kinds of different places that look a lot like this. Tin roofs and things, and a rough living situation. But like Lisa pointed out, one place that we were having a Bible study at, they still had their big widescreen, flat screen TV. I was like, boy, some things just never change, do they? No matter where they're at in the world, it's still the same. What did we eat? Well, Chloe enjoyed the fruit. This is her one of the first days there eating watermelon. And they had, of course, a lot of fresh fruit on the island. This is actually the market we were at. One of the markets we went to. I think we only went there one time. But this thing was massive. And you could, I don't remember, could you negotiate prices in the market? I don't remember if we did or not. But we got a pineapple, and they would cut it up and put it in the bag for you right there while you're waiting, and different things like that. We saw a lot of interesting stuff. There was a couple things I had to ask the person. I said, well, what is that? And when she told me what it was, I still didn't know what it was. I asked her what looked like a gigantic root. And I said, well, what is that? She says, it's yep yep. I don't know what yep yep is. Okay. And went on. But anyway, this is during our fruit break from our one-day Bible study we have, the men and the ladies. That's a pineapple, or not pineapple, that's a coconut there in a cup. And they came by later and they gave us straws. I guess they thought we couldn't handle it. I don't know. But you drink the coconut water there. And after Madro, even a Madro, I got tired of it. But we drank it and it was fine. But it's one of those things, to me anyway, okay. And I really just have water. But that's something they do. But it's interesting, even the islanders there in Fiji, I didn't see a lot of people drinking from coconuts. In Madro, everybody was doing that. In Fiji, it wasn't really that way. But you see that they have watermelon and pineapple and orange and I think that was banana bread all on the plate, and all that stuff was fresh. None of this was aged or had been around for very long. This is the feast. I believe this was the night of our last night there. And they would make, you can see some of these little tortilla looking things on the right and on the top of the table, and it's called roti. And it looked and it felt like a tortilla. And they would put in some other little, like what looks like potato down here in the bottom. They put that in there and put some vegetables in there and wrap it up, and that's how they would eat a lot of that. But I will tell you, you have to be careful about hot stuff, because what may not look like hot stuff will light you up. Because we were eating at when we ate out, we ate really what they would call a mall. And we went to their food court so we could pick whatever we wanted. And there was one afternoon I picked something and she didn't even tell me what it was, and I should have known, because I drank my whole bottle of water after a couple bites and I was done. And so you have to be really careful with that kind of stuff. But you can see the rice. You got 5 bowls of rice on that table. And when we were done, it was almost all gone. And so they aren't too much different from us sometimes, just piling it all on and plenty of food there for everyone. This is from the fish market. The large fish there on the the higher part of that is tuna. I don't remember what the bottom fish was. I don't think I asked. This next one, I'll warn you, is a little bit bloody. But this is octopus. And this is about the time that Chloe said, I don't like this. But they had octopus here, and they had also stingray in the fish market. I'd never seen stingray like that before. They'd actually cut the tail off, and it was just spread out there. And they had just a lot of different fish and things you could see, but I didn't get a chance to take a lot of pictures because we were still passing out flyers. So I was passing out stuff and just keep on going. And of course, they have ice cream in Fiji, and I know Chloe loved that. This is inside the mall, as they call it, and we'd walk into the grocery store and get some water, then go to the restaurant we were going to eat at. And one day we decided we wanted some ice cream, and I went to get some water, and Chloe and Stacy, they just went off and came out of the store, and there they are eating like, what? They didn't wait on us. But no doubt they were cute together, Chloe and Stacy and Kathy. They took to her very quickly, and she took to them, and they just had a lot of great times together. We have in Fiji, like they did in the Marshall Islands, they have a unique way of sending people off. In Madro, they sang, and I was there by myself, and they sang, and they got up and they'd walk around the auditorium, they were singing, and it wasn't like a worship type thing, it was just their traditional Fijian, or in that case, Madro way of saying farewell. So they want you to see a traditional farewell. Well, in Fiji, it's the same way. And they sang a song, and at the end of the song, toward the end of the song, they began waving to that song. And we were sitting there listening, and I never once thought, hey, I should record this. But we did have, maybe Lisa took this picture, I'm not sure. The Wisdom take a few pictures during that, but this is towards the end of the song, and they're waving farewell to us. And it was, that Thursday night was very difficult because there were a lot of tears that were shed and a lot of friendships and things that were made while we were there. So it was very difficult to tell them goodbye. But as Billy was telling me, we were out, I don't know how many times he told me this, probably almost every day we were out doing Bible studies. He said, everyone needs to come to Fiji 3 times. I said, okay. He goes, no, everyone needs to come to Fiji 3 times. You come 2 more times. And it's kind of interesting because Billy especially he would add the word man to everything. So I don't know if I was in Fiji or Jamaica, because he'd say, you need to come here, man. And he'd say it all the time. And we'd be talking about Bible things. People don't listen to Bible anymore, man, like that. And I couldn't help but kind of smile sometimes. But he was serious about coming back because he needed, and others realized they needed some help too, reaching out to their community. Because like us, we too need help sometimes reaching out to the lost. And we recognize, of course, that we could not have made it to Fiji without this congregation helping us and giving us the ability to go, giving us the time to go, and also giving us much of the funds that we needed to go to Fiji. And this is another picture that actually was taken. This is looking out at the ocean. The thing with Fiji is you can always see 2 nice sides. There's always the ocean, and then there's the mountains as well. And so it made for a very beautiful picture. And this is a picture there along the docks just before we went to walking down to get to a craft store and things. But as we have there, it says, I'm going to try to say this correctly, Vanaka Vaka Levu, which means thank you very much. Vanaka just means thank you. But we do thank this congregation for allowing us to go and helping us go. We have 5 other congregations that helped us go to Fiji as well, so we hope in the future to be able to give reports to them as well. But we do thank you for letting us go and be able to do the good work that we did. I know that we encouraged them, they've certainly encouraged us. And the brethren there in Fiji wanted us to make sure we told you hello and give you greetings from the congregation there in Suva as well. Are there any questions about our trip? Did everybody get a coin? Okay. Well, we do want to offer, I know this isn't something we usually offer an invitation to, but Fiji was an encouraging trip, and sometimes you have those things that you'll never forget, and Fiji was one of those experiences you'll never forget. Mission trips, sometimes you think, well, that's always for someone else. But if you've ever been on one, you'll catch what Lisa and I call mission fever. You want to go and keep going because you see others in the world who are not different from us. They have the same problems that we do. They have the same people who are trying to remain faithful to God. They have the same people who are struggling to do that which is right. And the same questions are asked like you hear here. One night after our Bible class, a brother came up to me and he said, this brother wants to ask you a question. And I don't have a picture of him on here because he's about 4 inches taller than I was. When he was talking to me, I was looking up to him like this. And when they're asking you a question about marriage and divorce during marriage, you're looking up to them like this, and they're a very large person. It can be very intimidating. But he asked the same question we hear asked all around concerning the reason for divorce. Can I be remarried? And one of the questions he asked was, can I continue to live with this person even though we're not married yet? And I'll talk to him about Hebrews, about how the Bible tells us that marriage is honorable among all and the bed undefiled, but fornicators and adulterers God will judge. And you have on those faces, you can't tell what he's thinking. If he agrees or if you think he's about to pound you into the dust, because he's a very, very big guy. And he kind of smiled and said, which meant, okay. And he asked me, he said, well, what if we slept in separate beds? And I looked at him, and the other brother, I looked over the other brother kind of for see if he's going to say anything, and he just looked back at me, and I said, well, you have to remember your example and what others are seeing, and that even though you think that's what you're going to do, that every person has weak points. And why would you want to expose that and give yourself the ability to give in and to commit sin? And he kind of looked at me for a moment. Okay. Stone face. I couldn't tell if he agreed with it or liked it, if he hated it. But the same questions, my point is the same questions were asked there that we have asked here. The same problems. Things aren't so much different. And Billy and I, who took me to different Bible studies throughout the week, said the same. He'd ask me a question about this. Have you seen this? Yeah. I've seen that all the time. He'd say, by the week he was saying, same problems everywhere, huh? I said, yes. And so we know that we are not so much different from those in Fiji, those in Madro, those in other parts of the world. And you think about the different mission works we support, we are continuing to support those throughout the world. In Russia and Tanzania and there in where John Grubb is in Asia and all those places, and India, all those different people. And the same questions, I can guarantee, are being asked. And the same answers can be found from the Word of God. And so anytime that we have questions, just like those in Fiji or anywhere else in the world, we have to turn back to the Bible. And that's something I emphasize to them, is that when you talk to someone, because they had a lot of Bible studies all the time, I said, you cannot allow yourself to start saying, well, I think or I believe, because that's not going to get someone into heaven. What gets someone to heaven is hearing what the Bible says and then encouraging them to obey it. And studying with Brother Stacy, having him in Madra, I was side by side with him doing studies, and he was doing exactly the same thing. What does the Bible say? He'd open up the scriptures and he'd read a verse and say, now what does that verse mean? Because they'd ask a question. He'd open the verse and the Bible read a verse or two, and they say, well, it means such and such, and that means I'm doing something that's sinful. And so he kept it very simple. And so we can too as well, using the Bible to give us the answers to everything in our own lives. This evening, as you think about these things, if you have any needs or concerns,